Around 1200 BC, the greatest civilizations on Earth stood at the height of their power. The Egyptians ruled the Nile. The Hittites dominated Anatolia. The Mycenaeans controlled Greece. Great kingdoms stretched across the eastern Mediterranean, connected by trade routes that carried copper, tin, gold, ivory, grain, and ideas across thousands of miles. It was an international world, a connected world, a prosperous world. And then, within the space of a few decades, it all began to collapse. Cities burned, kingdoms vanished, trade networks disappeared, entire civilizations fell into ruin. And at the center of this catastrophe was a mysterious force known only as the Sea Peoples. To the civilizations they encountered, they seemed to appear from nowhere. No one knew exactly who they were. No one knew where they had come from, and no one seemed capable of stopping them. This is the story of one of history's greatest mysteries, the story of the Sea Peoples, and how they helped bring an entire age to an end. To understand the shock they created, you first have to understand the world they entered. The Late Bronze Age was one of the most advanced periods the ancient world had ever seen. For centuries, powerful kingdoms had risen around the Mediterranean. Their rulers exchanged gifts. Their merchants crossed seas. Their diplomats wrote letters to one another. Far from being isolated civilizations, they formed a vast interconnected system. The Egyptian pharaoh could communicate with kings hundreds of miles away. Mycenaean merchants sailed between ports carrying luxury goods. Copper from Cyprus and tin from distant lands flowed through international trade networks. Together, these materials created bronze. And bronze was everything: weapons, armor, tools, power itself. The prosperity of entire kingdoms depended on this network continuing to function. For generations it did. The great powers grew richer. Their cities grew larger. Their palaces became more magnificent. Few could have imagined how fragile it all really was. Then, sometime around 1200 BC, cracks began to appear. Drought struck parts of the eastern Mediterranean. Harvests became unreliable. Trade routes faced disruption. Political instability spread through several kingdoms. And then came something far worse, an enemy unlike anything they had faced before. The first warnings arrived as desperate messages. Ancient rulers began writing to one another, pleading for help. One surviving letter from the king of Ugarit captures the growing panic. Enemy ships had appeared along the coast. Cities were under attack. The kingdom desperately needed assistance, but help never arrived, because everyone was facing the same disaster. One by one, coastal settlements began to fall. Ports were destroyed. Trade routes collapsed. Entire populations fled their homes. The attackers became known to history as the Sea Peoples. The name itself comes primarily from Egyptian records. These records describe groups arriving by both land and sea, moving across the eastern Mediterranean and leaving destruction in their wake. But who exactly they were remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Were they refugees fleeing famine, invaders seeking new lands, displaced warriors from collapsing kingdoms, or were they all of these things at once? Even today, historians continue to debate the answer. What is certain is that wherever they appeared, destruction often followed. The kingdom of Ugarit provides one of the clearest examples. Located in modern-day Syria, Ugarit was a thriving commercial center. Its merchants traded across the Mediterranean. Its rulers enjoyed wealth and influence. Then suddenly it vanished. Archaeologists discovered layers of ash and destruction throughout the city. Buildings had been burned. The kingdom was abandoned. It never recovered. The same story unfolded elsewhere. Across the eastern Mediterranean, cities that had flourished for centuries were destroyed. Some were rebuilt, many were not. Entire regions entered periods of decline. The world that had existed for hundreds of years was unraveling, and the collapse seemed unstoppable. Perhaps nowhere was the threat more apparent than in the Hittite Empire. At its height, the Hittite state was one of the superpowers of the ancient world. Its armies rivaled Egypt. Its kings controlled vast territories. Its capital, Hattusa, stood as one of the great cities of the age. Then, astonishingly, it disappeared. The empire fragmented. Its cities were abandoned. Its political structure collapsed. One of the greatest powers of the Bronze Age simply ceased to exist. For centuries afterward, much of its history was forgotten. An empire that had once challenged Egypt vanished into the shadows of history. The Sea Peoples may not have been solely responsible, but they arrived at precisely the moment the empire was weakest, and their assaults helped push a struggling system over the edge. As chaos spread, only one great power remained standing: Egypt, the wealthiest kingdom in the region, the oldest civilization among the major powers, and the final obstacle standing between the Sea Peoples and complete domination of the eastern Mediterranean. The pharaoh at this time was Ramesses III, and he understood the danger better than anyone. Reports arrived describing entire regions being devastated. Kingdoms were falling. Cities were burning. Refugees flooded across the landscape. The Sea Peoples were advancing toward Egypt itself. The survival of one of history's greatest civilizations was now at stake. Then came the final confrontation. Around 1177 BC, the Sea Peoples launched an invasion of Egypt. Ancient Egyptian records describe enormous groups moving both by land and sea. Families traveled with them. Wagons carried possessions. This was not merely a raiding expedition. It looked like a migration, a movement of entire populations. Ramesses III prepared carefully. Rather than meeting the enemy in open water, he devised a trap. Egyptian forces gathered along the Nile Delta. Archers positioned themselves on shore. Warships waited nearby. When the Sea Peoples entered the waterways, the Egyptians struck. Arrows rained down from both land and sea. Enemy vessels became trapped. Fighting erupted at close range. The Egyptians claimed a decisive victory. One of the most famous reliefs from the ancient world depicts the battle in remarkable detail. Warriors clash aboard ships. Bodies fall into the water. The invaders appear caught in chaos. For Egypt, it was a moment of triumph. The kingdom had survived. The Sea Peoples had been stopped, at least for now. Yet, even victory could not save the old world. The damage had already been done. Trade networks remained shattered. Major kingdoms had collapsed. Cities lay abandoned. Populations moved across entire regions. The Bronze Age international system never recovered. Instead, a darker and less connected age followed. In Greece, writing disappeared for centuries. Palaces fell into ruin. Long-distance trade dramatically declined. Knowledge was lost. Power fragmented. The world entered a period historians now call the Bronze Age collapse, one of the greatest societal breakdowns in human history. And so we return to the question that has fascinated historians for generations. Who were the Sea Peoples? The frustrating truth is that nobody knows for certain. Some may have originated in the Aegean. Others may have come from Anatolia. Some were likely refugees. Others were warriors. Still others may have belonged to civilizations already collapsing under the pressure of drought, famine, and political instability. Perhaps the greatest mistake is imagining the Sea Peoples as a single nation. They may have been many different groups united only by circumstance. a vast human movement triggered by a world already falling apart. If that is true, then the Sea Peoples were not simply the cause of the Bronze Age collapse. They were also one of its consequences, a symptom of a system under unbearable strain. More than 3,000 years later, the mystery remains unsolved. No definitive homeland has been found. No final answer has emerged. The Sea Peoples still stand among history's greatest enigmas, but their impact is undeniable. They arrived during one of the most turbulent periods humanity had ever experienced, and when the chaos finally ended, the world they entered was gone. The great Bronze Age kingdoms had fallen. Ancient powers had vanished. Entire civilizations had disappeared into history. The old world had collapsed, and a new one was beginning. The Age of Bronze was over. The Age of Iron had begun. And somewhere within that transformation, hidden beneath the ruins of empires, the true story of the Sea Peoples remains buried beneath the sands of time.